We have had a few problems in traffic this afternoon. First of all, in Pinellas County, had as they described it, an elderly gentleman pushing a lawnmower on the interstate. That will slow you down, I guess, as everyone looks. No word on whether he's going to weed eat when he finishes that. 60.
9 minutes after the hour of 12 noon. Welcome to a Friday edition of the Bob Lassiter Show. You can understand how I got the 8th and the 9th mixed up. Of course, you see, your weekend starts today. My weekend doesn't start until 4 o'clock tomorrow. Tomorrow, by the way, is Psychic Saturday. Psychic Saturday right here at the radio station. It will be really exciting. And, of course, my weekend doesn't start until tomorrow because my employer is heartless. My employer doesn't want me to have weekends with my family and just as soon burn me out. Save a couple of bucks, but that's neither here nor there. Your employer isn't like that, I'll bet, is he? Of course he isn't. Is it me, or is this place Looney Tunes? You know what I mean? I mean, be honest with me if you would. Is this place bonkers, or am I bonkers? I have before me 2 newspaper articles and 1 letter. Let me share them with you. They're really not related at all, but yet they are. Because, well, you'll see, okay? First article appearing this morning in the St. Petersburg Times, great newspaper. At least they are since they did the article on me. A 13-year-old accused of punching his school principal in retaliation for a paddling has been arrested and charged with battery, police said. It was the second time this school year that a school official reported an attack spurred by corporal punishment. In neighboring Okaloosa County, Kenneth A. Stroud, 31, is scheduled to be tried February 22nd on battery and assault charges. He is accused of hitting an assistant principal who had spanked Stroud's 12-year-old son last October. In the case here, a 6th grade student punched David Drake, principal at Walton Middle School, cutting his lip, said Sergeant Troy Ammons of the, looks to me like Defunkia Springs Police Department. Ought to be Defunkia. I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Teddy, but we'll just live with what it is. The youth on Wednesday was transferred from the Walton County Jail to a detention center in Pensacola and remains there. Thursday, pending arraignment in juvenile court. He was given 5 licks with a paddle, and on the 3rd lick, he wheeled around and said, "That's enough." Drake, 47, said, "Wednesday, I said, 'No, it's not,' and that's when he hit me. Oh, pity poo." Drake said the student was being disciplined for using profanity in the classroom and cursing a counselor. He said the boy then continued to use obscene language as he questioned him. The youngster also insisted on being paddled, Drake said. In Walton County, he said a student has the option of being paddled or taking some other punishment. Drake said that 2 witnesses were present during the paddling and that he grabbed and held the youngster for 15 minutes until police arrived. Oh, my God. Oh, can you imagine somebody objecting to being paddled? Somebody objecting to being beat? But in the great state of Florida, that's the way we discipline our children here. We beat them. And then we arrest them when human nature takes over. I mean, hey, you hit me, I'm going to hit you back. But if you're a kid in the state of Florida, you're just supposed to say, "Thank you, sir." "Oh, thank you ever so much." I mean, is it me or is this place bonkers? Second article. This is becoming almost routine. Around lunchtime on Wednesday, a 76-year-old man and a 75-year-old wife decided to go out for a bite to eat. They left their East Coast Delray Beach condominium at about 11:30 in the morning, got into their red 1980 Ford, and drove off. Well, nearly 22 hours and 250 miles later, the disoriented couple walked into a McDonald's restaurant here being Seminole, and asked for directions home and ordered coffee. They came in about 9 o'clock in the morning asking me where this beach was, said a restaurant employee who asked not to be named. The beach was over on the other coast. I hadn't even heard of it. Delray Beach is on the Atlantic coast, north of Fort Lauderdale. Seminole is west of St. Petersburg, about 4 miles from the Gulf of Mexico. They started asking customers and everybody, but nobody knew where it was, the employee said. I really felt sorry for them, One woman customer asked the couple where they were from. The employee said they couldn't remember. By their actions, they appeared to be lost, said Lieutenant John Bocchino, or something like that, a sheriff's office spokesman. We brought them back to headquarters, located a relative, a son in Delray Beach. By 8 p.m. Thursday, they were back home safe. This is the first time anything like this has ever happened, said the couple's son. They gave us quite a scare. We're just getting them cleaned up and putting them to bed. He said his parents hadn't been able to talk about the incident. They're still disoriented. We really don't know what happened. I don't know if we ever will. I mean, it's almost once a week you hear about a case like this in the good old state of Florida, This is the place where, a year or so, maybe 2 years ago, it was suggested that people in their age bracket be given extra special testing for driver's licenses, and everybody said, oh, no, that would be such an imposition. No, it's a state full of batty old people who drive 22 hours looking for a local McDonald's. But, like I said, is it me or is this place Looney Tunes? And then this letter comes in, dated January the 5th, 1988. It wasn't sent to me. It was sent to Peter Handy, manager, station WFLA, 801 East Jackson Street, etc., etc., etc. Dear Mr. Handy, I wasn't able to write sooner, but notwithstanding the delay, I felt it necessary to express my concern to you. By the way, the letter is flawlessly typed. I am a Canadian who has resided for the winters in Florida for the past 15 years. Several weeks ago, I turned in on your station while driving in my car. At that time, Bob Lassiter. I mean, can you imagine what kind of a bozo? I'm talking about brain-damaged snowbirds from the North Country. Bob Lassiter, I guess there's several of them, was broadcasting, and his statements consisted of a diatribe on the way the Canadians come to Florida, and using the slimiest of means, proceeded to defraud the natives by surreptitiously using Canadian coins, which, according to him, are worthless. Also, they created traffic congestion and should go back home. He went on to air complaints of how he had been abused by customs inspection and money exchanges while he was on a trip to Canada. The arrogance and ignorance of the man was blatantly appalling. Professing to have lived previously in a border state to Canada, his lack of knowledge of the country and its inhabitants was something to wonder about. As he described it, our occupation was solely dedicated to hunting moose and fishing, and then coming to take advantage of Floridians. The worst part of his presentation was the way he encouraged his listeners to call in their pet peeves about Canadians. And they dredged them up from the distant past and of the pettiest nature. Moreover, when the odd person phoned to complain about the manner he was spouting, he browbeat them in no uncertain terms. I am all for free speech and opposed to censorship, but to me this is an abuse of the use of the airwaves because this garbage goes unanswered. I trust that this man and his insults do not reflect the policy of your station. What your tourist bureau and chambers of commerce are trying to accomplish is being undermined. The courtesy we receive from the local residents and businesses is very satisfying. It is unfortunate that a man of this caliber has to take an opportunity to spout his unfriendly thoughts so loud. Next time I'll whisper. I thought you might be interested in the reaction of one Canadian. Signed, very truly yours, Henry G. Goodman, Longboat Key, Florida, with carbon copies to the Federal Communications Commission and the Greater Tampa Chamber of Commerce. Whoa. Well, look here, bozo, if you're listening, you are the archetypical brain-damaged snowbird. Because, first of all, bozo, I am not a Bob Lassiter, I am the Bob Lassiter, but that's a minor point, just one for me. However, look here, jerk, if you've ever listened to the show, and if you ever listened to that show, you know full well that I've never been in Canada. I never talked of having any problems with border guards. I never talked of having any problems with exchange, monetary exchange. It was people who listened to the show who called up. Now, I can well understand, bozo, probably having moose antlers stuck in your ears, for old time's sakes, why you didn't hear exactly what was being said, and I can well understand why you would miss my melodious tones and assume that, somebody talking like this was Bob Lassiter. I can well understand that. Take the antlers out of your ears, fellow, and maybe you'll hear it a little bit better. You know what I mean? You said that this garbage goes unanswered, huh? You said that these petty peeves were dredged up from the distant past. And of the pettiest of natures. Well, there was caller after caller after caller, jerk, talking about Canadians coming down here with money orders in the U.S. with Canadian money orders. Let me get that straight. There were people calling up, complaining, caller after caller after caller, about money orders and traveler's checks made out in Canadian funds, coming down here and passing them off as U.S. funds. It's not exactly a petty peeve, is it, bozo? They were talking about things that had happened 2 or 3 days previous, or 2 or 3 weeks, or 2 or 3 months. I don't think that qualifies as distant past. But you said that the charges went unanswered. By the way, bozo, you talk here about my charges, that the people were coming down here and surreptitiously using Canadian coins. Well, where the hell do you think they come from, jerk? They ain't coming from people from Montana. There's nobody flying in here from Hawaii passing them. Where do you think they come from? And they're all over the damn place. So if it's not the Canadians, I want to know where those Canadian quarters come from. Huh? Where the hell are they coming from? I mean, is it me? Or is this state Looney Tunes? 990. Do you think we should call this bozo at home? I mean, here he is. He doesn't write to me. Charges go unanswered. Doesn't write to me. He writes to a guy that doesn't have a radio show. Now, Handy doesn't have a gig. Maybe he will on Saturdays between noon and 4 pretty soon, but that's besides the point. Handy doesn't have a show on the station. What's he writing to Handy for? I'll tell you why he's writing to Handy. To get me in trouble. And so what's he do? Lies through his teeth. Lies through his teeth. The arrogance and ignorance of the man was appalling. Said he had been to Canada and had trouble with border guards. Never said anything of the like, ever. Said he had trouble exchanging his money. Never said anything of the like, ever. Ever. Take the antlers out of your ears, jerk.
Time was, one could count on a...
Listen exactly what you say.
You know this guy, Henry Goodman? Have you ever seen him?
No.
Ever seen anybody wandering around down there with, moose antlers stuck in his ears?
No, I imagine if he did, he should be put away. Well, anyway, that story in the 13-year-old...
Tabor in the longboat. Hi, Tabor. You're on the air.
Hey, Robert, how are you today?
Doing fine.
Listen, I have a good friend of mine out on a longboat, Joey, that knows Henry G. Goodman. Would you like his phone number?
I've got it.
Do you have it?
Yeah. Henry's such a brain-damaged snowbird, he, enclosed it in his letter. Guess he thought that Mr.
Maybe you'd like to give him a call.
He probably thought that Peter Handy was going to call him personally and let him know, exactly when I would be fired. That's why he gave us the phone number.
And we rounded it up. I think I've seen him out there. He's got some big antlers, I'll tell you.
Well, he must, because, he hears things that aren't said, and, like I said, if they ain't bringing down the damn quarters, who is?
He's the only one riding right at the big Mercedes. I've seen him out there with a hole cut in the roof of these damn antlers sticking out the top.
Wouldn't be in the least bit surprised.
Canadian, got Ontario license plates on there. All right, buddy. Well, I just thought if I could help you out, give him a call. I'd like to hear you give him a hard time.
Well, we may call him before the afternoon is over.
Okay, Robert. Have a good day.
Thank you, Tabor. We'll give him a chance to call us. I mean, he says, these charges go unanswered. Well, hey there, Henry G. Goodman. Instead of writing to my boss, why don't you call me and answer them? Turkey. Period. Because if it wasn't intended to hurt, then it wouldn't be considered a punishment, would it?
Well, yes, hurt them. Pat them on their butt. Let them know, hey, this teacher has the authority. You don't go in there disrupting her class. And that's how I should see it. They're talking about hire someone else. Why spend more tax money when they're always crying? They're always over budget. They're over budget. What are you going to spend more tax money?
What in the hell does this have to do with taxes, Robert?
Well, you're going to hire somebody else to discipline these children, aren't you?
No, I'm not going to hire anybody to beat children, Robert.
Well, I feel that they should have their butts spanked.
Oh.
If they are in school, and if they're...
Are you into kicking dogs, too?
Yep, my dog misbehaved.
Oh.
He goes squat on my floor, and I tell him to go outside. If I let him outside, and he go run around outside and come back in and squat on my floor, yeah, I'm going to spank his butt.
But do you realize you could be arrested in the state of Florida for doing that?
Well, that's just a chance I would have to take, and I don't think no one's going to come and arrest me for spanking my dog's butt. If so, they could take the dog home with them.
Amazing. Just amazing.
Okay, Bob, you have a nice day.
Yeah, you too. Hope your dog stays out of your way.
If they can't...
I would imagine, Mike, it's going to be pretty bad education,
That's right. They need to be disciplined.
Yeah, so let's beat them.
Of course.
Yeah.
What else do they recognize, Bob?
Right. I'll tell you what children recognize. Children recognize the same thing that dogs recognize. Love, understanding, compassion. That's what children recognize.
So when you're like that Robert said from Tampa, when your dog goes on the carpeting, what are you supposed to do? You're a good puppy dog?
No, you're supposed to tell the dog how disappointed you are, because the dog has a natural instinct, just like a child has a natural instinct, to please you.
No, Bob.
Oh, I see.
Bob, these people that call in and say that they were emotionally scarred by a beating, these people are weak. They're good candidates for psychiatric help or something.
Uh-huh.
The quality education would really fund.
How many times have you beaten, Mike?
Bob, when I was a child, my parents were very strict on me.
How many times have you beaten, Mike?
Pardon?
I remember when I was in school and I was about that age of that kid, one of my teachers, I got unruly in class. He took me and told me to sit out in the hallway, okay? All alone out in the hallway. You don't know how devastating that is to a kid that age. You just sit there. There's no one coming by. You know, everybody's in class but you. And then near the end of the hour, he called me back in, and he gave me a quiz on what was discussed in class that day that I'd missed. And, of course, I could not answer many of the questions. And he explained to me, he said, that's what we're here for, DB. He said, we're here to learn, not to be unruly. And I got the message, you know?
Exactly. Human beings are social animals. Most people like to be part of the crowd. It is, you're quite right, devastating. It's why staying after school is devastating, because you're not out there with your buddies. It's why suspension in extreme cases is devastating, because you're not there with your friends, et cetera, et cetera. And for the disciplinary problem that's a lone wolf to start with and doesn't care about being with his buddies, again, what is accomplished by beating this person who is abnormal to start with?
It's outrageous.
It's going to make you normal to beat him?
Outrageous. I hear you talking about mail all the time lately. Did you get my mail by the chance? The Far Side poster?
Yes, I did. I thank you much for it. I got quite a kick out of it.
Did you like that?
Yes, I did.
Another thing I wanted to say
Except, unfortunately, it puts so damn much Scotch tape on it, I almost had to destroy it to open it.
Hello, Bob.
Hi.
How you doing?
Fine, thanks.
Bob, I can't believe this. That all these wimps are calling up complaining about how they were brutally beaten in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever stop to think if they deserved it or not?
Nobody deserves to be beat.
Sure they do.
Especially an innocent child.
No, Bob. These kids, you say innocent children, but I've been in school. I was beat when I was a senior in high school. I got paddled, but I deserved it.
Yeah.
There's such thing as authority and discipline.
Yeah.
There's a difference between abuse and discipline. Now, if somebody's abusing somebody, that's for no good reason. But discipline keeps the person in line.
Does anybody have the right to beat you now that you're out of school when you get out of line, maybe at work or down the bowling alley or whatever? Does anybody have the right to beat you with a board?
If that's the way the rules are set up, yes.
Does anybody have a right to beat you with a board?
Sure.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
No, they don't. If somebody hits you with a board, shut up.
I'd rather get beat.
I'll finish my statement without you. If somebody hits you with a board now, they go to jail. What in the hell is the difference between hitting an 18-year-old with a board for getting out of line and hitting a 17-year-old with a board for getting out of line? There's one difference. Total lack of respect for the 17-year-old and his rights. Period.
Not in the daytime. If I were going to be on at night, you'd be able to hear it quite well. But if you're anywhere in southern Georgia, you'll be able to hear it.
That sounds great. I want to wish you the very best, Paul. And
well, thank you.
Like I say, we all love you, and I know we're all going to miss you.
Well, thank you for your thoughtfulness in calling.
All righty, and even though Bob gets mouthy, we love him too.
Yeah, we all do.
Okay.
We want to keep Bob here.
The best of everything.
Take care.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Is there a favorite caller, Gonzalez?
Oh, yeah.
Who's your favorite caller?
I have to say Lionel. Lionel has been one of my regular callers for years and years. I think Lionel's called you a time or two.
I should hasten to point out, do not did not realize that I
Get to the
was punching him up as we speak.
Get to the point.
Hey, you know what? I swear to goodness, Lionel, when I said you're the favorite caller, I didn't know you were on the line.
No, he really did.
I didn't know.
Because he's sitting on the other side of the screen.
Okay?
No, it's true.
You're
he's sitting on the
liar,
other side of the
Lassiter.
screen.
Lassiter, I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to a star. A man who's proven himself by 22 years in this market. Well, while people
Forget
like
it, Lionel, he already has a lawyer for that whiplash case.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. This man is a genius. He realizes talent. He realizes the people. Hello.
We're listening.
What the hell was that noise?
I was just reaching over to get my kazoo for a little background music here.
This too while you're at it, Bob.
Hey, watch it.
Let me tell you something, Paul. I have a heavy heart today.
You need to see a doctor about that.
I've never felt this bad since I graduated from high school. And I realized that we have to move
Wait a second,
on.
you're a high school graduate?
Lassiter, do me a favor. Shut up.
It's my show. It says so on the
To a
paper.
legend. I'm talking to a legend, Bob.
Well, I know, and I've got Gonzalez with me.
I'm talking to Paul Gonzalez. 22 years in this market at that station. Paul, I can't tell you how close I feel to you. Do you realize how many times we have spoken?
Yeah, we've probably spoken more to each other than maybe our wives and kids.
Well, Lionel probably has an exact total. How many times, Lionel?
4. But good calls. That's crap. We've spoken at least 100 times.
Oh, yeah, indeed.
Let me tell you something. When you, Paul, you realized it years ago, 1981, when you realized that you had to be on talk shows, that was your forte. So what did you do so cleverly? You decided to pick a station that had a strong enough signal to reach people who had radios who wanted to hear talk show in the first place. Unlike Bob, who went to a rinky-dink station where they got a little rabbit and a treadmill trying to get the nanometers up to a high enough level to transmit over the bay. But, Paul, you had class. You realized what you had to do. You were the first person, Paul. Don't you understand what Bob Lassiter owes you? You were the first person to talk about hemorrhoidectomies, anal sex. Before Bob made it a national pastime, you talked about cleavage removal. I mean, you talked about stuff nobody ever heard of. Bob, I know where you live. I know what you drive. Cut the humming out, all right?
Okay, Lionel.
Fine. Paul, thousands of us, literally thousands, have listened to you religiously. You are our friend. You're not just some personage, some visage, some thing on the air. You are our friend. And you did something that very few people have ever done.
You taking your shoes off, too?
One thing you did...
On the table.
Yeah, take the condom off, too, Bob. One of the things you did, Paul, that was most important was that you instituted something that nobody's ever done before, and it always amazed me. And that's getting 2 callers on at the same time. You started that. You were the king of that. You took a show, and you put caller against caller, pitted one against the other. That's what I enjoyed. When you used to be on in the afternoon, it was like a friend. We knew that no matter what happened, we always could find you at 970 AM WFLA. We knew we could find you right there.
My eyes are a little moist, too.
You were like General Electric. We turned you on, we turned you off. We followed you through. You brought on probably Paul Marilyn Chambers. When in my life could I ever speak directly with Marilyn Chambers? And I called in, and I still have the tape from that. It's wonderful.
She was naked, too, during that interview.
Of course she was, and so were you.
But she
did that to you once?
The only thing is, though, she was on the phone.
But she was naked under her clothes, as were you. But remember, you brought us Marilyn Chambers. You brought us gerbils. You brought us sexual thoughts and...
Yeah, but I brought you Mr. Marbles.
Yeah, and you also brought us Jacob, which was a fraud, all right?
I will discuss that later.
This man, Bob, let me tell you something. You know, you're a big guy, all right? I understand that. And you're going places. You're going to Waimama. You're going to a variety of places. But I want you to look
offered
across.
Waimama down.
I want you to look across at this man.
Parking
This
problem.
humble man who literally changed the course of radio history. And let me tell you something. You might think I'm just giving you a line of crap. But we, Paul, love you. Honest to God, we love you. Desperate and dateless, wherever you are, you did something. You were non-controversial. You didn't have to be a prick to get ratings. You didn't have to be a in the ass to get ratings. You were yourself. You let the subject matter, the controversy itself, cause the calls. You didn't call people boneheads. You didn't call people brain-damaged snowbirds and all that crap. You let the subject matter speak for itself. Do you realize that if I were to mention the name Fermi, Edison, Ford, I mean pioneers.
All people that Paul had on the show.
Paul Gonzalez, seriously, is a pioneer in radio.
Well, Lionel, on that point, let me get some...
No, wait a minute, hold it.
Oh, wait.
You want to cut him off because you're not getting the praise because you think...
No, because there's a board full of people that want to take on his shoes, too.
He's a giant. Let me tell you, Lassiter,
We're both
you've
pretty
gotten
big.
on my nerves long enough.
Oh, gee. Something must have happened to the line.
Thank you, Lionel.
WFLA.
Well, have you checked out Atlanta?
Yes.
Check out the station.
Oh, yeah. It's, I think they're paying their bills.
Do they have good coffee?
They have excellent coffee.
They must have Kimmon's coffee then. It has to be that way. I mean, if it's excellent coffee, it has to be Kimmon's coffee service.
See, I don't know what kind, but it's good coffee.
I assume it was a pretty major part of the decision, the quality of coffee.
The coffee definitely was, a big deal on the contract.
And I would have to assume that you're leaving here that a lot of the problem was leaving the great coffee.
That's true. And also, while I'm leaving, or since I'm leaving, the coffee bill is going to be quite smaller, Bob.
Well, I'm not so sure about that. Kimmon's coffee service is not really any more expensive than anyone else, even though the service is far superior. The product is superior.
Mm-hmm.
The cost isn't. The cost is the same as anybody else. I mean, you've got to be crazy to have a coffee service and not have Kimmon's coffee service. I mean, do you realize that there's same-day service with Kimmon's coffee? Did you know that, Paul? Did you know that if you wanted a cappuccino machine or an espresso machine, you could get one?
Wow.
Of course, our big guy downstairs, no, he won't get us one, but he could from Kimmon's coffee service.
Oh, it's good stuff.
It's great stuff. Most memorable guest.
Most memorable, that's like saying your favorite song. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I know, I couldn't answer the question either.
No, it's a tough one. Steve Allen was a good one in the entertainment category. What an awesome man that does so many different things. Lauren Green was a good interview. The late Lauren Green. I enjoyed him a lot. He had a good sense of humor.
What did you talk about with him?
Oh, well, I started out to see if he had a sense of humor, and I asked him if...
Well, he was on your show. Come on.
Right. I said, in dog years, how old are you? And I figured he would hang up, and he laughed, and he said, oh, that's a great question.
Brian in Tampa. Hi, Brian. You're on the air with Paul G. Golly Whiz.
Hi, Bob.
Hi.
Paul?
Hey.
A.K.A. Pablo, how are you?
I'm doing very good.
I can't even remember all the names I've worked under.
Well, you know what they do is they buy jingle packages. And they just get a guy, and whoever it was, they already had a package for Paul Dixon, so they said, you are now Buck.
Bye-bye, Regis. Let's go to Sophronia. Hi, Sophronia. You're on the air, WFLA.
Hi, Paul.
Hi, Sophronia.
Oh, gosh. Listen, I'm Lionel's mother.
Really?
I'm Lionel's mother. And I want to thank you with all my heart for making my son a star.
I love it. I love it. I've heard about you.
Well, I hope not too much.
Oh, I've heard some good things about you.
Well, that's good.
I heard about that deal you had when you got all that Kentucky Fried Chicken. Do you remember that?
Oh, yes, yes. But let's go on to better things. I just want to tell you, I'm sorry you're going, but I have a suggestion.
Yeah?
Stay here. Get rid of Lassiter. I can't stand that bum.
I know it's Lionel's mom.
Jerk, that acrimonious fool.
It's Lionel's mom. She hates me.
Vituperous. He's truculent. He makes me want to barf. Stay here, Paul. Stay here. My son needs you. We need you. Lassiter, what is he doing? Just making everybody sick to their stomach. Can't stomach the guy. And you know, you made me listen to the radio. I turned off my soaps. I got onto the radio. When you're gone, back to the set. I am not going to listen to Ellery.
You mean you're going to go back and listen to The Young and the Restless?
Well, what else is there?
But you know what you can do?
The star is gone.
Oh, no, listen.
Tell him.
No.
That bum what he is.
You know, now I know how Lionel gets his shtick. You used all those big multi-syllable words.
You got him from me, Paul.
Ah.
You got him from me.
You see, Lionel will go on the air and insult you with all those big words, and
you don't
think,
know you've been hit,
right? I mean, he'll call you all these names, and he'll say thank you after he just called you.
Right,
you know,
and on
miserable.
top of that, he slips in, some Spanish curse words too, right in the middle of it.
I heard some of that.
Didn't we all?
Well, thanks, Mrs. Lionel.
You know, I stopped smoking because of you.
Really? Well, I didn't. How did you stop smoking because of me?
Well, you just gave me the incentive. But I'm going to go back to drink, and I'm going to go back to smoking now that Lassiter's around.
Well, hey, just don't blame it on me. What about your kid?
Well, he's a bum. That Lassiter is a bum. I can't stand when he insults little old ladies, nice men, people that call in and try to compliment. He tries to browbeat them, beat them down, and he turns things around so that they end up apologizing to him.
Give him hell, Ma! Give him hell! I hate that man!
I love you, Paul. I'm going to miss you a lot.
Thank you, Sophronia.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Let us go next to, oh my goodness, the celebrities are really calling in now.
39 and 60, they had quite a meet. And of all things, an elderly gentleman pushing a lawnmower on the interstate in Pinellas County. There you go for Friday. Must be a full moon.